Wow, nice jump. This is cool. Alrighty guys. Here we go. These are the first meters on the Zero. It's crazy how quiet it is. Obviously it's quiet. So finally we get to go. We take the easy trail. It does have some sound, but not much. Oh wow, that's quite the experience. So this bike weighs 247 kilograms, which is basically on par with the big bore adventure bikes, you know, like the GS and stuff, and mine, the 1290 Super Adventure R. The other thing that's quite characteristic for this one is that the weight is very low in the frame because the battery and the motor set very low, so it balances like a GS, which makes the handling quite nice, and it's immediately apparent when you're on it. It feels a lot lighter than a bike should feel when it's that heavy. Now, of course, I'm missing the clutch, so I've only got the gas and the brake, or the brakes actually. Oh, it's got some nice pickup actually. Haha, that's cool. So it's on traction control, so I can't be skidding out like this guy. And I'm on street tires, but it's, you know, it's dry enough that that's not so much of a deal. It cuts out the power when I do the same thing. We asked a lot of questions yesterday about this motorcycle. Obviously, this has been on the market for not even a year, I believe, and it's one of the newest bikes in the lineup. So basically, they're adventure bike in the electric bike category. They have lots of different bikes. Zero Motorcycle's been around for a long time. There will be options to have spoked wheels. This comes with cast wheels right now and street tires, but there is an option to get different wheels and of course different tires if you want to do a bit more of this. And there's a chance that they may have a few of those in the fleet going forward here at the Enduro Action Team, so you can try them out yourself. Of course, the first question everyone asks when it comes to electric powered bikes, what's the range on this? And of course there's a big, it depends. So I said, you know, for this kind of stuff, slow stuff here, the battery lasts the whole day just cruising around. On the street, I said it's somewhere between 180 to 280, depending on how you ride. And then you have to charge. So there's two options for chargers. One is slow, it takes about 2 hours to charge the battery, and then there's a quick charge option that takes an hour. It's one of those typical quick chargers you can use for cars as well. So it only takes an hour to charge up the bike again. I don't know what the capacity of the battery is on this one here. I didn't ask that yesterday. The price is somewhere, when I remember correctly, in the range of 23,000 euros. It's not cheap, but again, it's on par with with big adventure bikes. And if you consider that, you know, the fuel costs are much lower than they would be on a gas-powered bike. Also, maintenance, there isn't much to maintain on this bike. There's no oil changes, anything like that. So I assume that the maintenance costs are pretty low on a bike like this, and that kind of probably makes up for the higher sort of investment that you make for this bike. Oh, this is fun. Twist the throttle. Wow, nice jump. This is cool. The power delivery is very smooth. It's quite nice. I mean, it doesn't take long to get used to that. The power delivery is awesome. It's a lot of fun to ride this bike, I have to say. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed how much fun it is. The suspension system, I thought it's gonna be kind of lame, but it's good. It's quite good on this bike. For this stuff here, it's more than adequate. It's very smooth to get through the bumps. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and of course you don't have to bother with gear shifts at all. It's always in the right gear. You know, for those guys that like automatic transmissions, you know, here there's no shifting necessary. But also you don't have a clutch, so it does help in sort of more technical stuff. We're not going to do that here on this test round, but on the more technical stuff, the stuff that you normally do with your clutch, you know, have a lot of feel in your fingers and, you know, control the power of the bike. You can only do that, of course, with your right hand now. So I'm sure that's a bit of a learning curve. Well, I'm glad we're doing some of the bumps here, because it really kind of tests out the suspension. See how it copes with this stuff. And oh, it's not bad. I mean, you can't necessarily keep up with the GS or a KTM, but it's pretty good. Now, for someone like me that likes to do touring on these bikes, the range is still sort of the biggest area of development for these electric bikes. You know, with an average of maybe 200 kilometers in a tank before we need to recharge. That would be too low for me. I don't know what a good mileage would be, but even 400 I think would be kind of low. But then again, if you have a fast charger and you ride it somewhere where you have infrastructure for charging, you know, an hour charging another, let's say 400 kilometers up, that puts it in a range of making this bike quite interesting compared to gas bikes. Most gas bikes don't go more than 400, and pretty soon they will have bikes that will go that distance, I'm sure. And then of course there's the issue of engine sound. There isn't any, but just like with an electric car, there's something to it. Because you just hear more stuff around you all of a sudden that you would normally not hear. Because the engine noise is covering it up. You can almost hear the birds chirping with this. So I don't think I would have an issue with that, of having no engine sound. But then for, you know, adventure rides where you take this bike to remote off-road locations, it's going to be a very long time before you get sort of charging infrastructure to do any kind of quick charging, and the slow charging will take 2 hours. So that kind of course limits it a little bit, how far you can take it off to the boonies, I guess.
Ich würde dann noch mal kurz auf die Straße gehen, dass man einfach mal das Beschleunigen, quasi gerade die mit den Elektromopeds noch mal kurz mitfühlen, ne?
And of course with the issue of motorcycles being banned in certain parts of Germany because they're so loud, parts of Austria, as a matter of fact, they have decibel limits in certain alpine passes. With this bike, you're not going to get in trouble for the sound. Oh, this is not good. Someone got hurt. That sucks. Oh, it is very dusty today. So I'm going to do second round. Yeah, I like this technical stuff because that kind of shows you how the bike behaves, how suspension works, and, you know, especially like how you can control the throttle. This works quite well. Whoops. I hit the foot peg. I don't know what the clearance of this bike is. But anyway, the last automatic sort of bike I had the pleasure to ride was an Africa Twin, the one that's in front of me, with the automatic transmission. And that was not such a pleasant experience. And the reason is because it's not a fully automatic, in that sense, it's like a half automatic. So it's still a manual transmission. You can still feel the gears, and when it starts switching gears from, let's say, 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, the power curve is different. The power delivery is different. And here it's smooth all the way. And that's a big benefit of this electric bike. It's a much nicer experience for an automatic sort of. It's not even a transmission, it doesn't have any gears. But you know, for a bike that doesn't need manual shifting input, that's what I mean. So this is where I would pull my clutch in. It's a bit weird. And yeah, slow speed like this because the bike has such low center of gravity that you can be at a standstill and the bike doesn't tip over. Woohoo! Holy moly! Wow! Damn, this bike has pickup! Yes! Okay, this is fun. Oh, thank you, Frank, for taking us on the piece of pavement. That is awesome. Frank, you rock. That's awesome. Let's try this again. Whoa! Very cool. Oh wow. So if you ever get a chance to ride one of these, it's definitely worth it. So the foot pixels seem low because I'm hitting these tires here. Oh, speaking of low, now the seat position is low, relatively low. I'm sure you can get a higher seat, but I can get both of my feet flat on the ground and have some extra spare space actually. So just by the design of the bike, you know, even if you're not a super tall rider, you can ride this bike. Plus the balance is really nice. I'd say it's maybe even a tad lower than the BMW GS. Hard to say, I haven't sat on one for a while, but now the traction control is pretty choppy on this one. So if you're used to something like what KTM has, it's very smooth. This bike cuts the power pretty rough. So if I'm giving it a little bit of throttle, it just cuts it off right away. So it's not a smooth thing, it keeps the wheel spinning, but it's just a cutoff. Not sure if you can turn it off entirely, but if that was an option, then that would probably be my preferred option, rather than using the off-road traction control. It does have an off-road mode for the brakes, so I can lock the rear brake and the ABS stays intact on the front. That's cool. And the coolest thing, this bike, it's got a reverse gear. Obviously that's a lot easier to implement on an electric bike, but you can put it in reverse. You can back it up to 6 kilometers an hour. So if you need to sort of park it, move it out, this bike has a reverse gear. That's quite funny. I have to try this out later. I did actually earlier before I got on the bike. So you have to like fiddle around in the sub menus a little bit. But then if you need to move it back, then that's how you do it. So this is the end of it's like 2 rounds around the block. And I'm quite pleasantly surprised, I have to say. This was definitely worth a time trying this out. Very nice bike. Very smooth on the throttle. Excellent balancing. Very cool. So I'm going to see the reverse gear now. And that's how you do it. And that's how you go back. Rückwärtsgang. Ich sehe nichts, ich habe keine Spiegel. Zack. Ist geil. Ist wirklich cool. Macht richtig Spaß. Zweimal rum. Auch mal ein Stückchen auf Asphalt, wo man ein bisschen am Kabel ziehen konnte. Aber es lohnt sich, die mal zu fahren. Ist wirklich, gerade was so Gasannahme angeht und so weiter, ist wirklich Yeah, so guys, this is it. It's the end of my test ride. I want to show you the bike real quick.